are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet, and the show for fans who know what happened. They want to know why and how. Lily Zhao on the show today. Thanks for everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen of the day. The Packers have more players on the COVID list and important decisions to make on Jaire Alexander. Today is decision day on Jaire Alexander. And by the time you listen to this, we may know what the situation is with Jaire. The Packers have to either decide to bring him onto the squad to activate him or to shut him down for the rest of the year. Matt LaFleur was non-committal about it on Monday when he was asked about it. I don't think I have to tell you just how important it is for the Packers to get someone of Jaire Alexander's quality back on the field. If and when they can do that, we will talk about that some more. But just from a housekeeping standpoint, I thought it was most important, frankly, we start there. So we will get that important update about Jaire Alexander today. We will talk about it on the show tomorrow. Our crossover Thursday will certainly feature that. We do not expect Jaire is going to play this week, but I think some discussions to come about how important regular season reps are. David Bakhtiari, by the way, is back. He is on the team. He's activated. So they don't have to make any more decisions about him. And my guess would be, my hope would be, but my guess would be after practicing for a couple of weeks, it seems like he's doing okay, that they will activate him. Now, whether or not Jaire Alexander actually plays, very much a question. Speaking of whether or not someone who is not currently available will play, Mercedes Lewis and Oren Burks added to the COVID list this week. They are much more involved in the team than the players who went on the list yesterday. We could have more players that we see go on the list tomorrow. Importantly, though, the NFL has changed its rules about how quickly guys can come back in keeping with the changes made by the CDC. So this is in keeping with federal guidelines. Unvaccinated and vaccinated players will both be eligible to come off of the COVID list 5 days after a positive test. In the case of unvaccinated players, remember, they test every day. So you catch that positive right away. With an unvaccinated player, you're only going to get tested if you have symptoms or you are randomly selected. So that is really the only difference now. That 5-day period starts when the swab was taken. So today's Wednesday. It was announced Tuesday. And Monday, presumably, was when these tests were. That would give them 5 days, more than enough time to get back. So, assuming these guys are asymptomatic and assuming they're healthy enough to get cleared by the doctors, they can play. Anyone after yesterday, basically, going to be tough. Going to be tough. Now, because of the way this works, you could get a player who tests positive, is symptomatic, and by, let's say, Friday, Saturday, is not, and comes in with a positive or a negative test and gets cleared to play on game day. This change is important for so many reasons. It's more important for a team like Indianapolis, who could get Carson Wentz back. It also means something for the Vikings this week with Dalvin Cook. He is currently on the COVID list and is theoretically now eligible to return. What this means moving forward is the impact of potential positives on the Packers from a football standpoint, strictly football, it is less ominous. Oh, at the beginning of the week, if you pop positive Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, there's just no shot right now. I mean, it's usually 7 to 10 days for all these guys to get back, vaccinated or not. And it used to be 10 days, even unvaccinated. There's now no difference, essentially, between a vaccinated and an unvaccinated player once they test positive. Now, again, because of the way this works, you could test positive after you would have if you were an unvaccinated player. And we don't need to get into like the daily machinations of all of that. It means that even though Mercedes Lewis hits the COVID list, he can come back. It means that even though Oren Burks hits the COVID list, he can come back. And this would have been two players, by the way, who in other circumstances probably would not have been back. If this happens a week ago, they probably could not have come back. And you lose the best blocking tight end that this team has by far, one of the best in the league, if not the best. And you have a core special teamer, one of your best cover guys in special teams, and a linebacker in a room that is pretty limited. Oren Burks plays inside. He plays outside. He's been cross-trained. He can rush the passer a little bit. Even if it's not something he's great at, he's got some juice. He's got some explosiveness. You could scheme up some looks for him. Not having him would have been a big deal. It seems like, based on our understandings of everything that's going on right now, they will be eligible to come back. That is a big deal. Kenny Clark, who is back already, he does not have to be tested again until forever. No, until after the Super Bowl. Devontae Adams, for him, it's the divisional round of the playoffs. For Aaron Rodgers, it's right before the Super Bowl. These guys are pillars of this team. They are crucial to this team's ability to win the Super Bowl. And I wish just as much as you do that we didn't have to be sitting here talking about the rules around COVID. I wish as much as you do that we didn't have to be talking about COVID at all, that we could just talk about football. But that's not the deal, because this materially impacts the play on the field. It materially impacts this team's ability to win a Super Bowl. It's why we've always talked about it. And it's why, look, I've taken criticism for talking about it. And I have done more than just lay out what's happening, because I think my responsibility goes beyond that. And it's not just a responsibility that I think I have. It is that it's my desire to do that. And not everyone agrees with me on that stuff. And that's fine. We're not going to agree on everything. This would be a boring show if we agreed on everything. If you listened to me every day and you agreed with every single thing I said, I think you would be bored. I really do. And I don't program around trying to not do that. I'm going to give you what I think is the truth, such that I can tell it. These changes, assuming we trust the CDC, based on what we know about what's going on with the virus, really 1 to 2 days before you show symptoms, 2 to 3 days after you start showing symptoms, that is mostly the window where you are contagious. And the point of these rules is to prevent players from spreading the virus to other people. And if that's the goal, then it seems like this makes sense. It seems like this is the right way to go. That if other people can return to work after 5 days and wear masks, if what Dr. Alan Sills with the NFL is saying is true, that on the field is not where guys are getting it. I think we have pretty good data at this point now, 2 years into this, that's the case. The guys are not getting it on the field. They're getting it on the sidelines. They're getting it in meeting rooms. They're mostly getting it away from the facility. And so now we've shortened down this window. And after that 5-day window, for the next 5 days, these guys have to wear N95s everywhere. N95 masks that protect them, that protect everyone around them. These are the heavy duty. These are the reals. These are what doctors wear. These are what, the people in the hospitals are wearing, nurses, healthcare professionals. if the goal is health and player safety, at least based on what we know, it seems like this is a reasonable way to go. There is a cynical viewpoint in all of this. I get it. There's even some disagreement in the medical community about whether or not this is the right thing to do. I get that. But I also understand the NFL saying, look, we've created a situation where this is about as safe as it gets. 94, 95% vaccination rate. We know that means a little bit less with this new variant. But even those people in the NFL who are going to get it now are very unlikely, very, very, very unlikely to have bad outcomes. We're not even going to get into the conversations being had between certain Packer players and other shows where they may or may not be speaking and what is being said out there. I'm not even going to get into that. The reason I'm bringing it up here is because it impacts the Packers on the field. And being able to get Mercedes Lewis back and Oren Burks back this week, important. Could be a different player next week. Could be another important player next week. Could be Aaron Jones next week. It could be Eric Stokes next week or the week after that. It could be Darnell Savage. It could be Adrian Amos. Luckily for the Packers, the players who have had it have not had adverse reactions so far. And that a lot of their key players, Rodgers, Adams, Devondre Campbell, Kenny Clark, have already had it. And they keep winning. Now, they didn't win the one game Rodgers sat, of course. But they did when Adams was out. They did when Kenny Clark was out. They did when Devondre Campbell was out. And so now those guys are not, they're not in the clear, but they're in good shape here moving forward. So these rules matter. You hope that they can continue to be safe. And you hope that the rules are based on verifiable science, which, based on the recommendations that we have, seems like is the case. So, again, I wish we didn't have to spend so much time talking about it, but it impacts the product that the Packers put out there on the field every single day. And so that's why we talk about it. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar ever. It's the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. One set of my family already got them in their stockings. We've got another set coming through. They're going to get some in their stockings, and they're going to like it. How do I know that? Because I've tasted them. This is not just me reading ad copy. I am a believer in Built Bar. I just spent my own hard-earned money on multiple boxes of bars because I like them, because my wife likes them. My family likes them. My dad buys them like crazy. You want to eat healthy, but you don't want to eat boring food. You don't eat bland food. You don't eat blah food. You want something covered in 100% real chocolate, don't you? You want something that has the name salted caramel attached to it or coconut brownie attached to it. That's what you want to eat, especially around the holidays. Now have it be low in calories, low in net carbs, low in sugar, high in protein, high in fiber. Even better, huh? Well, you can do all of that with Built Bar. Go to Built.com and use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off that order. Locked15 for 15% off at Built.com. There were once again some tense moments, but the win streak lives on. A post-Christmas, pre-New Year edition of everyone's favorite segment, Zhao You Doing, from Fox 6 in Milwaukee. Lily Zhao is with us now. Lily, how you doing?
Peter, I'm doing great. I got my, where is it? Christmas tree still up, so I'm doing great. Holiday festivities were great. Packers win was great, and talking with you is even better. So, how you doing?
Hell yeah. It did feel weird, right? That they played on Christmas. Didn't it feel weird?
Yeah, it was weird because I was like, what do we do on Sunday? But also, it's Christmas. I mean, the Bucks played too here, so it was a full slate of Wisconsin sports for everybody. But it did feel weird.
I was a little annoyed that the schedule makers, the powers that be, did not separate the two games by enough, because the Bucks went to overtime and the Packers started. And so I had to follow separately, and I can't do the DVR thing. Can you do that? Are you someone that can like DVR a game and watch it later, even though you can just pull up your phone and know the outcome? I can't do that.
No, like I need to know what happened, because I'm like, it ruins it. It's like, you know know what happened, so what's the point of watching it, in my opinion. But I luckily I was at work and I had a TV up and I had my laptop streaming, so I was getting both. So
It's the
yeah.
it's the multi-screen experience that really
Yes.
you need, like the TV and the iPad. I'm very jealous of the people that have the multi-TV setups.
Oh, me
The
too.
like sports cave where you have like 3 TVs. I have a buddy that legit has 3 TVs. And it's just like, man, that sounds great for like college football Saturday.
Oh,
3 TVs because there's so much stuff on all the time. So the game was also weird because in the first half it was just like, okay, yeah, the Packers are going to blow this team out and it's going to be great. And then in the second half, they didn't. For the second straight week, I think we can say this against a quarterback who's probably not very good. If you're the Browns right now, would you rather have Baker Mayfield for 140 million or Tyler Huntley for like 15?
Tyler.
It doesn't seem like a close thing either. What do you attribute what's going on in the second half of these games? Because we saw this in 2019 too. They would control these games and just let the other team get back into it.
Yeah, it just was their inability to close things out. And, I know, taking your foot off the gas, it's all very cliche, which is what Rodgers has talked about. Yeah, it's cliche, but at the end of the day, we didn't do it. We didn't step on their throats. We didn't go for it. And it was just kind of surprising to see only a field goal put up in the second half. I mean, this is an offense that can thoroughly take out another team, but they just haven't found that ability to blow teams out or to just put these teams away when they need to. And it's a little concerning this far in the season because, again, you have 2 regular season games left and then it's the playoffs. You have to show the ability to close these games out, especially against an opponent that you should have probably beaten by a lot more than they did. It's something that I know they can get righted, but I think it needs to start on Sunday against the Vikings. Can you show that you can blow out or at least beat a good team with a comfortable margin? Because, the last thing we want to see is, they've consistently had very slow starts in the first quarter offensively. Whether or not that's because Rodgers hasn't practiced consistently because of that pinky toe, I mean, that's probably going to play a big part in it. But, they start out slow, and then you have to kind of be fortunate that they're not going to be down by a big margin in the second quarter, which is kind of where they pick up steam. And then, they found ways to win in the second half. But against the Browns and Ravens, it was, kind of the same story. They had a comfortable lead, and it whittles down. So that can't happen moving forward, but it's definitely an Achilles heel to this team so far.
Yeah, and it does feel like we're quibbling a little bit, right? Like Achilles heel may even be too strong a phrase because they won these games, So but it was juxtaposed to me when I watched Dallas on Sunday. They're scoring touchdowns with backups, and now I get it. The Browns are better than Washington. Washington is a complete disaster. But we've seen the Eagles blow out teams. These teams that we don't think of as good. The Texans blew out the Chargers. Like for the Packers to not be able to do it in some of these games, it starts to feel a little bit concerning, I think is like the best way that I could phrase it, because Dallas, that team can score in bunches and play defense. Tampa, if they get, Mike Evans back from COVID and Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, like they're going to be able to score and they can play defense. This Packers team, it feels like they haven't, we have talked about this on the show a bunch, right? They haven't played that complete game yet. The games when the defense has been really good, the offense has been herky-jerky. The games where the offense has been really good, the defense can't get stops. I don't know. We're running out of weeks here for them to actually put all those things together.
I know, and that's kind of what I think needs to happen on Sunday. It's can they be consistent? That's been the biggest issue. You just alluded to it there. It's, one side of the football is doing well and the other one is not. And then the one week that one is, the other one's not. So it's what can these guys do to put together a complete game? Because like you mentioned, they're going to be facing the cream of the crop in the playoffs. And, if you're starting out slow in the first quarter offensively and Dallas is putting up, 2 touchdowns, now you're in a big hole. And same with Tampa Bay. You want to be able to find that consistency on both sides. But, I think it's going to be another big challenge, though, for them against the Vikings. They've shown that they're very vulnerable in the run game defensively. Can Dalvin Cook come back? I think it's a pretty good sign he could come back on Sunday night. And then Justin Jefferson really killed them that first time in week 11. So those guys are good weapons, but then when you look at the teams in the playoffs, they have better weapons. So if you can't even stop these guys Sunday night primetime at home, it could be a little concerning. But again, it's, they're still winning these games. They're still 12-3. They still have the best record. So I guess we're being nitpicky on my end, I would say.
No, I have been plenty nitpicky. So do not take all of that burden. I will take plenty of it. Because what we're talking about is Super Bowl level, right? Because this is a team that's been close. We have to be nitpicky, I think, because the difference between a Super Bowl team and an NFC Championship game team is, it's infinitesimal. These are these little margins that can make the difference. They started out slow against Tampa Bay. They started out slow against the 49ers, and those were teams that actually played well in the first quarter. I also do wonder about just getting someone like Jaire Alexander back. What kind of emotional lift that could provide? Could it be just this season is the longest season any of these guys have ever played? COVID is back in a big way. How much do you think someone like Jaire Alexander could come in and just give them that little shot of adrenaline, maybe that they need to maybe start a little faster, having the fresh legs in there, something like that?
Yeah, exactly. I think that'll be a really big key. It's, he's got, great speed. He can cover really well. I think it's, if you take away, when you're looking at this Packers defense, right, they've been gashed on the ground and they've been gashed in big plays. If Jaire comes in and takes away the ability to hit them deep and to beat them high, and down the field, maybe that's like, okay, now we have to focus on the run game and run the ball really well. And then maybe they can, toughen up there. So I think when you have him back, that gives the defense another weapon to kind of take away one of the things that might be able to hurt them in the playoffs or even down the stretch. But when you look at even Tampa last year, when they made their Super Bowl run, it's like they got hot towards the end of the season and just really ran roughshod through everybody. I think the Packers have that ability as well when they can get these guys back and healthy. And then if they can actually put together a complete game, whether it's against the Vikings or the Lions, which they should win handily, maybe that just gives them the spark with these guys coming back that can take them and just give them that big boost, especially if they're playing in Lambeau Field. When you're playing with those home fans, I think just having all of that kind of together should give this team a good shot.
This has been a question that has been raised a lot over the last few weeks, as it has become clear that Green Bay is going to be in position on Sunday to at least keep pace with this number 1 seed. If the Cardinals earlier in the day beat the Cowboys, the Packers could clinch the number 1 seed with a win over the Vikings. And there are scenarios where they can kick Minnesota out of the playoffs altogether, which would just be another cherry on top. If, let's say that happens, let's say Arizona does beat Dallas and Green Bay does beat Minnesota, then they have a decision to make on how much rest is too much rest. Do you have a take on how much rest is too much rest? Would you be concerned if they rested their guys in week 18?
I feel like with these guys, they have this competitive fire, knowing that, yes, we have one extra game to play this year. We want to play. But then, I think it's Matt LaFleur weighing the risk of, yeah, we want these guys to still get some game reps, but we don't want to risk them getting hurt, right? So I do believe if that happens, if they can clinch the top seed, it's maybe they play a couple of reps, a couple series, and then just let Jordan Love and company take over and go from there. The last thing you want to do is, we all talk about it. The last thing you want to do is have somebody important go down in a quote unquote meaningless game in the regular season. So, I do feel like even though they're not going to play a majority of the game, if all those best case scenarios happen, I do still think that we're going to see Aaron Rodgers and Devontae and those guys out there for a couple of series.
I'm fascinated to see what that looks like, because my guess is Aaron Rodgers is gonna advocate that he doesn't need the work. He hasn't practiced in 2 months, Lily, and it hasn't seemed to affect him. But Matt LaFleur might say, "No, we think you should get some work out there." So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Now that's a long way. Let's not put the cart before the horse. They have to go beat a very game Vikings team, a team that would love to knock the Packers down a peg. In this matchup, if Jaire Alexander can be back, would you expect them to have him match up, especially with Adam Thielen dealing with an injury? Would you expect him to match up with Justin Jefferson, say more than we've seen the Packers do so far without Jaire out there?
I would hope so, but then you have to say, he's been out for a while. It's probably going to take him a little bit to adjust. Not saying it's going to take him a whole half or, whatnot, but you kind of have to see where his body's at. But I do believe that when you have Jaire in, it's like, why be tentative with him? Obviously, you want to make sure he's 100% to go health-wise, which is why he's going to be out there. But if you're going to have him out there, you might as well put him on the best guy, and that's Justin Jefferson. So I do believe that we'll see that happen if that's the case. Again, Eric Stokes, he can hold his own, and I'm sure he had his bumps and bruises in that first matchup. So, I'm sure he'd love another crack at it as well. But I do believe if you have Jaire out there, Pro Bowler, you're going to put him on a guy like Justin Jefferson.
I would love to see it. It would be a big ask though, right? To come back. You haven't played in what, 12, 15 weeks, and now it's go cover the best receiver in the league that isn't currently on your team.
Yeah, that's a tough task, but I think it's, one of those guys really thriving, right? It's, I'm coming back. I'm needed on this defense, and I'm going to prove why I'm one of the best.
So one of the things Aaron Rodgers said, among many, in his interview with Pat McAfee this week was that Matt LaFleur has not gotten enough credit this year and is not being talked enough about as a coach of the year candidate. Now, I don't think betting odds are everything, but Matt LaFleur is now the favorite to be coach of the year. I still kind of think they're right that he hasn't been talked enough about. And the irony is it's probably because he has Aaron Rodgers. But are you still in agreement with me that, because we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, that no one is really talking about Matt LaFleur for coach of the year? Now he's the favorite. And I still feel like no one's really talking about Matt LaFleur.
Yeah, I do feel that too. It's when you looked at those earlier graphics when people are talking about, all right, it's kind of mid-season, coach of the year, let's talk about it. I mean, his name was never even mentioned. And now that it is in conversation, I'm still like, but I don't think that he's in the conversation, even though people are saying he's the favorite now. It's a very weird thing, but I do believe that he's definitely not getting as much recognition as he needs. I know he doesn't really care, but in the grand scheme of things, with what he's been able to do with this team and the caliber of guys that have been out, and the record that they have and the consistency that he's really held this team at every single year since he's been in Green Bay, he should 100% be the leading candidate for coach of the year. It's just a very weird thing though, because you're thinking, okay, he has Aaron Rodgers. He doesn't need to be in the conversation. They'll be fine every year. But again, you have to have a relationship with a quarterback like Rodgers, Hall of Fame guy, and then you still have to win these games, and he's been able to do it. But like you mentioned, he's the favorite right now, but it's like, is he? I still don't hear enough about him. It's very odd.
We're almost reaching the point where now people like to throw out candidates just to be contrarians.
Yeah.
Just like, hey, who should be talked about more? And it's like, no. Can we talk about the person who deserves it the most? Let's do that first. Let's everyone establish this is the guy we all agree should get it. And then you can throw out your dark horse candidates. I saw a couple weeks ago, John Harbaugh, even though they lost to the Packers, they're like, well, but John Harbaugh, and then they get blown up by the Bengals. And it's like, okay, well, maybe we should have spent more time talking about the coach who won that game. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. Lily, we talked about some of your Christmas traditions last week.
Mm-hmm.
New Year's Eve, fun or lame?
You know what? It's probably a controversial opinion, topic, whatever, but I do not care for it. I don't know. It's just
not controversial.
It's whatever, especially now with COVID and everything. It's like, are people really going to go out and go crazy? I'm like, ooh, it's the start of a new year, but I'm not going crazy about everything.
I feel like it is, it's like Valentine's Day, but for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I love champagne, by the way, love it. So any excuse to drink champagne and make a nice meal and stay up late, that's fine, I guess. I don't need to stay up late. Midnight is I'm up till midnight most nights anyway. That's not a special thing for me. It's just a Tuesday, but I don't get it. I've never really understood it. I guess when I was younger, I thought it was fun to go out, but even that, I would the idea of New Year's is always better than New Year's.
Yes, 100%. I always have these built up ideas of what I'm going to do or what I'm going to wear. Right. And when it comes to, I'm like, all right, well, this is kind of a letdown.
I have some of the nights where I have had the worst nights have been New Year's Eve.
Same. I thought I was the only one.
No, terrible. And luckily some of them were with my now wife when we were dating, and we would we got into fights or I this is true, and I'm maybe revealing too much. I have hitchhiked one time in my life, and it was on New Year's.
Oh my gosh. I'm glad you're still with us.
I was walking home and I was trying to hail a cab, and my hand up in the air to hail a cab turned eventually into a thumb out just for someone to pick me up. And a very nice man picked me up, drove me home. I gave him some money, although he refused to take it. I said, no, and I just left it on the seat. And yeah, it's true.
Oh my gosh. And that was on New Year's Eve?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's like the epitome of like, you had high expectations and now that's
and then you wound up hitchhiking home. Yes. Not great. Not ideal. Let's hope the Packers season doesn't take any turn like that. And we will get to talk to you next week. We will talk to you in a brand new year.
Yeah, that's crazy. This is our last show of 2021.
Oh my goodness, I didn't even think of that, but you're right. It is.
Yeah, and Peter, now we're on to 2022.
I'm not ready, but thanks as always for coming on. Thanks for helping make 2021 the best year of Locked On Packers ever, by audience, by everything, and by appearances by Lily Zhao. So thank you so much, and we will talk to you next year.
Can't wait. Thanks, Peter.
Thanks for making Locked On Packers your first listen every day. Make sure to check out the Ultimate College Football Playoff Preview 2021. Local experts, betting advice, and draft analysis. The most comprehensive college football playoff preview is live now. All right, I want to thank Lily for joining the show. Always great to talk to her. She is an absolute blast. And if you're not following Lily on Twitter, you should go do that at Lily's Out. If you're not following me on Twitter, you can do that, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Locked On Packers. Subscribe on YouTube. Hit the little button down below. Subscribe. Check us out. Get the alerts. We're here every day. Live after the game. We'll be live on YouTube after the game on Sunday night. Back here tomorrow for Crossover Thursday. Happy hour on Friday. Yes, we are doing a happy hour on Friday on New Year's Eve. We will figure out the timing on that, but we are going to do one because what else are you going to do? Come on. What else are you going to do? This is what you're going to do. And it's going to be fun. Ready? Okay, great. And anytime you want to hit us up on the Locked On Packers fan hotline, you can do that, 920-341-3775 to stay Locked On Packers.